Well, hello, Nativity Bible heads. It is Dr. Wayne, and it is time for a Bible Study Wednesday. Yes, July 7th edition. We are in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 5 today, and this is a classic, okay? This is the story of Naaman. We know about this story of Naaman because Jesus refers to it in one of the Gospels, Luke chapter 4. We don't get it from any other Gospel writer but Luke, where Jesus was preaching at his hometown synagogue of Nazareth, and he throws out a couple of things. Well, he refers to this incident in 2 Kings chapter 5. And immediately after he's done talking specifically about this chapter of 2 Kings, they try to throw him off the cliff. Yeah, he gets run out of town. There is something he says about this that really stirs them up. So this is actually a pretty interesting chapter to pay attention to, because it begs the question, what was it about this that got them so angry at Jesus? So I hope I hope I didn't oversell it, but this is really good. So let's dig in, shall we? Chapter 5 of 2 Kings, verse 1. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was a great man and in high favor with his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Aram. Okay, what is this all about? Well, there is a country north of Israel. Today it's called Syria. Back then it was called Aramea, and Aram, Damascus, that realm there, that's present day Syria. In fact, when Jesus refers to Naaman, he refers to he actually uses the word Syria and not Aram. But Naaman, we don't. This is really the only time this Naaman is ever talked about in the entire Bible, except for when Jesus mentions it. There's a few Naamans that get mentioned in some genealogy lists, not the same one. This Naaman is specifically a non-Jewish, non-Israelite. Okay, so the way the storyteller builds this story, and it's told with a lot of artistry, which we'll get to here, but it puffs him up. Okay, it builds him up as like a great man. And notice it says that the Lord had given victory to Aram. So this was a time when the northern kingdom was a little bit squashed, if you will, by this kingdom to the north. And in the words of the biblical writer, this was the Lord's doing. Got to remember, the audience of much of what we see in 2 Kings, the audience is the exiles. And the exiles are, where are they? Well, they're in Babylon, and which is a little bit farther north, actually a little bit east also of Syria. But the idea that God, the God of Israel, was actually controlling things outside Israel is a big deal. Let's go on. The man, though a mighty warrior, suffered from leprosy. Whenever we see the word leprosy, because I know a lot of us, we get taught what leprosy is when we're in Sunday school, and it's like this horrendous skin disease. The word leprosy in the Bible is a catch-all phrase for a lot of different ailments. skin ailments, some of which were bad, really bad, and some of them not so bad. I mean, leprosy could be anything from dandruff to, that real bad form where you're highly infectious and all of that, right? So, so when it says he suffered from leprosy, obviously it wasn't the debilitating kind that had him sequester away, right? Because he was still a great man, as it says, in high favor. In fact, his name means gracious, handsome. It's like we're really supposed to get that this guy was a great human being all around. And apparently, you can be handsome and have leprosy. Well, yeah, okay. Remember, leprosy could be simple. It could just simply be a case of dandruff. Really. Okay. Verse 2. Now the Arameans, on one of their raids, had taken a young girl captive from the land of Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. Yeah, so we have this young Jewish maiden who is captured in a foreign land, and she's subject to whatever, but she ends up being a link. Get this. She said to her mistress, this is the Jewish maiden saying to Naaman's wife, "If only my Lord were with the prophet." Remember, when you are a subservient person, you will refer to the other person, your superior, as my Lord. It's like, if only you, basically, if only you were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Veiled reference to Elisha. We know that we've been getting stories from Elisha. In fact, chapter 4 was all about stuff that Elisha was doing. And we do know that Elisha resided in Samaria. Samaria was the capital city of the northern kingdom at the time. And so she basically says, well, we got a guy in northern Israel that he can take care of that. Seriously, he's got tremendous street cred. This is Elisha she's talking about. So Naaman, verse 4. So Naaman went in and told his Lord just what the girl from the land of Israel had said. So when it says he told his Lord, it's talking about the king, right? What the girl from the land of Israel had said. And the king of Aram said, "Go then, and I will send along a letter to the king of Israel." Okay, so the story is afoot. We don't get enough of these well-told stories in the Bible. I don't think we get enough of them. There's so many stories that we get fragments and pieces and things that get put together. But this one, very tight, and it's very unified. It's wonderful. It's just a whole self-contained unit, chapter 5. In the middle of verse 5 here, he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of garments. It's not unusual to take a payment with you if you're going to consult the prophet. It's just not that unusual. This is, you want to know how, okay, I got little footnotes here. It says the 10 talents of silver, that's 755 pounds. 6,000 shekels, that's about 150 pounds of gold. That's a lot of bullion you're taking on there. All right. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, verse 6, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you my servant Naaman, that you may cure him of his leprosy." Okay, commending. Verse 7, when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I a God to give death or life that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Just look and see how he's trying to pick a quarrel with me. This is very telling in that the relationship between the king of Israel, notice it's an unnamed king. So it's kind of like this story is kind of a standalone story. It doesn't mention the king, so it doesn't try and fit it into anybody's reign, although we're in the middle of somebody's reign, but yet that's not what is important. Look at this. So obviously they've been, remember it says that the Lord had given Aram victory, and so it must be that this is a time when the king of the north is a little bit of subservient to the king of Aram, and he's afraid and thinking like, oh, this is a trap. That scoundrel is trying to get me again, kind of a deal. So that's the reason why this demonstrative thing of tearing the clothes, and it's like, oh, whoa, this is horrible because this means he's coming back for more. And no, he misreads. But this tells us the kind of situation is going on between the two of them. Verse 8. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a message to the king. So apparently word travels fast. And torn his clothes, yeah, everybody knows what that means. That means you're upset about something, okay? So it's like, why have you torn your clothes? Why are you so upset? Let him come to me, that he may learn that there is a prophet in Israel. Yeah, so Elisha is like the voice of reason. What are you getting so upset about? I got this. It's verse 9. So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. The mentioning of the horses and chariots is a reminder of the greatness of this man, right? A detail which the storyteller makes sure that we don't miss out on. And halted at the entrance of Elisha's house. Verse 10, Elisha sent a messenger to him. We're familiar with Elisha sending messengers. This is the way he did things a lot, saying, so the messenger is giving them the message. We did notice Elisha. We don't have the scene of Elisha actually talking to the messenger. We don't get the message until the messenger actually delivers it. Interesting. Because so many times in Scripture you'll see, oh, go tell so-and-so to do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then the person goes and then it's repeated again. Don't have that here. Elisha sent a messenger to him saying, go, wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean. But have you ever seen the Jordan? It does. How can anything? It doesn't look like you'd be clean coming out of the Jordan. When I was there, it was really muddy. But Naaman became angry and went away, saying, I thought that for me he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and would wave his hand over the spot and cure the leprosy. So Naaman, as great of a man as he's been made out to be, has a bit of a like, really? I wanted it to look a certain way. I wanted him to, it's like, he had some unfulfilled expectations that were creating upset. Unfulfilled expectations. That's on us, right? We have unfulfilled expectations many times. It's like we want a thing to look a certain way, especially if it's going to be for our benefit. We want it to look. We have a way we want it to look. We expect it to look, and if it doesn't look that way, it could be a little lead to upset, right? Verse 12. Naaman's upset continues. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? This is a little telling for is like the place where I got better waters where I am. If it's just a matter of doing a washing in a river, I got better rivers. Could I not wash in them and be clean? He turned and went away in a rage. Verse 13. But his servants approached and said to him, "A father," this is the way they would speak to a superior, sometimes my lord, sometimes father, but it was like anything that puts them in the superior position. "Father, if the prophet had commanded you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more when all he said to you was, 'Wash and be clean'?" So apparently this sense that they're giving him actually sinks in, because look, verse 14. So he went down and immersed himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. His flesh was restored like the flesh of a young boy, and he was clean. Okay, so that's the healing. Now we're going to go on, but I want you to get a little bit of the bookending here of we had a young girl who was taken captive, and now we have this mention of like that he was restored like the flesh of a young boy. Okay, so there's a little bit of that's a bit of a storytelling artistry, if you will, making sure basically it's the same word in Hebrew, only one's the masculine and one's the feminine, but it's just a part of that wordplay that good storytellers use. Verse 15. Then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company. He came and stood before him and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a present from your servant." So he goes back to Elijah, and this statement is it's a statement of conversion, okay? It is a statement of an outsider who was not a worshiper of the Lord, although the Lord had been with him in his victories. And now he's saying, well, this has totally convinced me that, wow, not only is he saying that this God of Israel is superior, but that it is exclusive. It's a monotheistic outlook. This is rare that we see monotheistic declarations in Scripture, especially the Old Testament, with all of the gods that people worshipped. So very, very rare. But this is the point of the story. The narrator wanted us to see his journey, this outsider who had a problem, who the Lord had been dealing with, and it is through a word of the Lord, a man of God, the word of the man of God. This word is to be sought after. Remember, Jesus said, he's pointing out when he mentions this incident, Jesus says that, well, prophets don't really get their due in their hometown. Elisha kind of did, because people knew, like, oh yeah, we know what this guy can do. We don't really have any stories otherwise for Elisha. Now, the story's going to go on, but this is the part of the story that Jesus had referred to. And he cited Naaman's being healed as an example that that the God of Israel is the God of all, and that God and that there was no ethnic favoritism with the Lord. In Jesus' day, he was confronting an ethnocentricity that was becoming a problem for the religion of that time. That's the reason why Jesus made people so mad. He was not this ethnocentric type of guy with regard to the Jews and such. And so that's the element that he came up against. And why they eventually crucified him is because he just was not floating the party line, if you will. So we're going to move on. So all of this is done. He's confessed he's converted, basically. All right. Now, I'm not saying that he went and had the cut and all of that. We don't know. Not important to the story. But look, please accept a present from your servant, which is what you do when you employ the services of a prophet. But look at this. Verse 16. But he said, as the Lord lives, whom I serve, this is Elisha speaking, I will accept nothing. He urged him to accept, but he, Elisha, refused. Then Naaman said, if not, please let 2 mule loads of earth be given to your servant, for your servant will no longer offer burnt offering or sacrifice to any god except the Lord. Okay, what's this about? Well, there's this very quaint idea back in that day that, remember, when the gods were seen to be a part of the land, okay? And so Naaman's basically saying he wants to take some of that dirt, is his way of saying, I want to take that dirt of your God with me. It's kind of like a token, what do you call it? A tchotchke. Some people, the word fetish has gotten used in other ways, but it's that kind of a thing where it's like an icon, all right? It's something tangible that represents this invisible God, because there are no idols for the Lord. But the idea is that this is his like token of remembrance, this dirt from. See that pile of dirt over there? That's the true God of all. That's the God of Israel. It's the God of all. But it's just that old way of thinking. So we don't want to judge Naaman for not being woke. Okay? All right. May the Lord, verse 18, may the Lord pardon your servant on one count. Oh, Naaman's got a problem here because he's been worshiping another god. Look at what's this. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, when he's talking about his the guy he works for, the king of Aram, and the house of Rimmon. The house of Rimmon, that's the god, that's the local deity up there. When my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, leaning on my arm, meaning I take him there. I basically am taking him there. That's my job, okay? And I bow down in the house of Rimmon. When I do bow down in the house of Rimmon, may the Lord pardon your servant on this one count. So he's basically saying, I still have this job I have to do, and it might look like I'm kowtowing to the deity that I declare is not a deity, but yet, but just pardon me this, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just part of what I have to do as the commander of the army of the king of Aram. all right? And he does. Look at this. Elisha says, he said to him, go in peace. Shalom. Shalom. Okay, very good. But, so he allows him this. And so this is rather instructive, if you will, about conversion and how to be with regard to your previous life or what you've given up. And it's like, it doesn't always have to look really like, you don't have to be cantankerous about it. You don't have to be an idiot. You don't have to act stupid. You don't have to come off to your friends as like, well, what's ever gotten into him? Like, it doesn't have to look that way. All right, anyway, go in peace. But when Naaman had gone from him a short distance, oh, now the story just keeps going, and get this, Gehazi, okay? We know who Gehazi is. He's Elisha's servant. Maybe not the same messenger that we encountered earlier, may have been, but it didn't really matter it was him before. It does matter now. Look at this. Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, thought, my master has let that Aramean Naaman off too lightly by not accepting from him what he offered. We don't get this a lot in Scripture, where the narrator tells us what somebody is thinking. Most of the time when we get narrative in the narrative that we get in Scripture is we get somebody's actions, and we have to figure out or even query, like, well, what were they thinking? What were they thinking in that action? And that's, most of the time, that's what we have to do as biblical exegetes, is try to figure out, well, what were they thinking in doing this? What did they have in mind? And look here, we're actually given it. We're actually told what he thought. It's like, this is awesome. We don't have to guess. My master has let there, as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something out of him. So Gehazi went after Naaman. When Naaman saw someone running after him, he jumped down from the chariot to meet him and said, is everything all right? He's literally asking him, it's the same word, shalom. It's like, we still in shalom here? Elisha said shalom. We still in shalom? He replied, yes, but my master sent me to say, he's lying. 2 members of a company of prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing. He makes up a bald-faced lie. Naaman said, please, accept 2 talents. See, he was already willing to give it all up. And I think he was probably pretty anxious to get rid of it because of the weight of it all. It was like, that's a lot to, yeah. It's like, okay, this will really take a burden off of the beasts of burden. He urged him and tied up 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of clothing and gave them to 2 of his servants who carried them in front of Gehazi. All right. Whew. So Gehazi sensed an opportunity to take advantage of this man who was willing to make a gift, and because he saw that he was so willing, it's like, well, this is easy pickings. How can I pass it? It's like, it's right there for the taking. This guy is so gracious and he's so grateful, and he wouldn't, and he didn't say no. He let him have all of what he wanted and more. So here's Gehazi with his stuff coming back to to Elisha's home. When he came to the citadel is obviously where that fortified part of the city where of the city, the fortified portion of the city. Sometimes it's on the wall, sometimes it's at the center, but it's fortified. But it means he's back to where he needs to be. When he came to the citadel, he took the bags from them and stored them inside. He dismissed the men, and they left. He went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, where have you been, Gehazi? You know, it's like he knows that he went somewhere and did something, because he's going to say, I had a premonition that somebody was up to something. So what did you just do? He answered, your servant has not gone anywhere at all. Another lie. But he said to him, this is Elisha saying, did I not go with you in spirit when someone left his chariot to meet you? It's obvious that he had some sort of cloudy vision of something transpiring. He didn't know exactly what, doesn't have all the details here, but he knows something is afoot. Is this a time to accept money and to accept clothing, olive orchards and vineyards, sheep and oxen and male and female slaves? It's obvious he didn't accept all of that stuff. But the idea is that he had taken an opportunity to fleece the man of some goods. Verse 27, therefore, here's the judgment, the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and to your descendants, forever. Yikes. So he left his presence leprous, as white as snow. Whoa. So, who knows what kind of leprosy that was. Does not seem that it was the same exact kind of leprosy that Naaman had, because Naaman obviously had something much more physically not abhorrent. But now we get this description of him. So when he says he's white as snow, it's like, well, maybe that's not just the leprosy so much as it is his fear, because the blood drains out of your face when you get fearful and scared. Well, that's probably that could be what's being described as well. So we don't want to get all hung up on, really? Is this the same type of leprosy? But the lesson is there, is it not? Gehazi tries to cash in on this thing, to take advantage of somebody who is overly grateful and overly gifted, and so it was just like a pig in a poke. It's like it was just there for the taking, and he shows no remorse over it at all. He's just really thinking that he's doing a great, can't believe nobody else thought of this, that kind of a thing. But that's the whole lesson for today. I mean, I hope you can see that for a nation who had been taken into exile, to hear a story like this, it confirms that there is good outside of, that the Lord is at work outside of Israel. You don't actually have to be in Israel for the Lord to be at work. The Lord is as Lord of all, and the confession of Naaman is that the Lord is Lord of all. And it is a little bit of it's a very much of I say a little bit, very much, it's a universalistic message. A universalist message, an anti-ethnocentricity. of saying like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all a part of this this big whole called God's people. And the story reminds us of the bigger picture of what God was about. That's why when Jesus refers to it in Luke, the people get violent with him because they weren't ready for that. They were wanting to hunker down in their ethnocentric ways, and they were happy with being prejudiced against foreigners and the like. It's a very good message for us to take in our own day and age to really reevaluate what are our motivations with regard to the people around us. What are we afraid of? Why is there fear? All of that. It's a good look into the soul as far as like where are my motivations? Maybe I don't think of myself as racist, but you know what? Maybe I have racist tendencies. Is that true? It's always healthy for us to ask ourselves these questions because we are the people who are on the way. We are the people who are marching with God, right? So we've got to be willing to ask ourselves that question. And if we just say, well, I'm not racist. Well, guess what? It never hurts to take the position that maybe we are. If that helps us fine-tune who we are for God and the world, then why would we be against that, right? This is a good lesson for us all, I believe. So that is it for Bible Study Wednesday today, and it's too bad we don't get this passage. We don't get this passage very often. I think it usually occurs like during Epiphany, but I don't know if I've ever preached on it. But maybe the next time it comes around, maybe we will. But it is actually in the lectionary. That is all today. Peace.